I did. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
That's what I want to hear.
Hello.
I want to hear that too.
Hello.
It just got sexy.
Just all over the place.
Sexy back.
Steve, say something boisterous, exuberant.
Hey, howdy, hey.
Oh my gosh, what are you ill? That was gross.
I come from Earth, a planet of outlaws. My name is Peter Quill. There's one other name you might know me by. Star-Lord. Who? Well, Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw? Forget it. So here we are. A thief, two thugs, an assassin, and a maniac. But we're not gonna stand by as evil wipes out the galaxy.
Oh, what the hell? I don't got that long a lifespan anyway.
Call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy. This might not be the best idea.
Hey everybody, it's the Film Board, our monthly gathering of special people talk about special movies, and tonight we are talking about the most specialist of the special, Guardians of the Galaxy, open this weekend, off to a heck of a good start, and so we're going to get into that. But first, the thugs at the round table, of course, Steve Sarmento.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
How's your vacation? What are you doing on this podcast on a vacation?
Okay, fine. See you later.
He's dedicated.
You are deeply welcome.
Just
welcome.
stick with hey, howdy, hey. That should be your new catchphrase.
Everybody gets only 3 words tonight, and we're still going to talk for an hour and a half. And Tommy Handsome.
Hi, friends.
Hi, friend. I'm looking forward to your opinion. More Tom loving on science fiction and fantasy. Can't wait to see how this ends. Mike, how are you, my friend?
I am Mike.
Yes, of course, Andy Nelson.
Hey, everybody.
And you know who else is on the show today, but not really on the show, is our friend and very talented actor, Chad Stoops, who was not able to join us, but it's almost like he was, because he sent me about half hour of his own commentary in audio.
Oh,
excellent.
Yeah, and so from time to time, like a delicious little house ad, I'm going to go ahead and insert some Chad. And it may be set off by likely some sort of Foley sound, maybe an explosion, to let you know that Chad is chiming in.
Insert some Chad.
Wow.
That sounds like a very different podcast than I want to subscribe to.
Hello, Chad.
Chad Stoops in the house. Thanks for having me on, Pete. Thanks for being with you guys, whoever's here. I hope whoever's here. Tom, if you're not, I'm not waving at you. Andy, if you're here, thumbs up. Love you guys. Thank you. I feel so fake.
No, we're going to be talking about the real Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the James Gunn directed epic, the kickstarting a new franchise for Marvel, though of course still tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it stars everybody, the charming Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Michael Rooker, Jamin Hunsu, and weirdly Glenn Close for a minute.
Yeah, I don't think she knows she's in the movie.
I don't think she does either. Benicio del Toro as well. Just very, very briefly do we get to see them. But otherwise, it's the start, or it's the start of another tentpole franchise. How do we think it performed as a film? Who wants to go first?
I thought it did well.
Do you?
Yes.
Tell me why. Give us a brief review.
I thought it did pretty well from a enjoyment standpoint. I took my 7-year-old daughter to it. She enjoyed it. It wasn't too relatively dark. The beginning was a little bit dark, but we got through it, and it was an enjoyable, enough sci-fi to keep you interested, and enough shooting and bat killing of, undead bad guys to keep you interested, and a lot of humor. So it was fun.
All right, so it's good. It's good. That's a reasonably non-committal but positive review from Uber Mike
for.
Evans. All right, Tommy, where do you come in?
As is my want, I rarely understood exactly what was going on all the time, or anyone, or who anyone was, or what their relations were to each other. The amount of weird sci-fi fantasy proper nouns thrown at me in the first 20 minutes had me laughing in my seat. But instead of getting frustrated like I usually do with the Hobbit films, I turned that part of my brain off and was like, oh, all of these interesting people, I know who's bad and who's good, and they're all going after this purple glowing thing. And then when I made that decision, I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. I really, really liked it.
I'm really glad to hear you say that. That was a committal kind of a review. I feel like.
Yeah, I don't work for Marvel like Mike.
All right, Steve.
It's interesting hearing Tom's perspective on this, because that was one of the things as I was reflecting on this movie is it's a superhero type origin film, and they've got to balance all this. We've got to introduce these characters, and since it's a sci-fi film, we've got some world building to do with these different races, and there's a war going on, and how it was able to balance that with moving the plot forward, with having to deliver characters and background and the sort of the setup of what's going on in the world that the story takes place in. And I thought it delivered on the character piece really well. We have some really interesting characters with some interesting backgrounds, but it was a little short on the world building. I really don't know the history between races, and apparently there's some peace treaty or something, but that didn't get in the way of enjoying the film. I think people that are familiar with the comic books, I'm assuming might have a little bit more, background on that, but you were given enough to understand, as Tom said, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. That's about all I need to know. And this movie just clicked along for all 2 hours and kept me thoroughly enjoyed, every moment, despite the fact I was in a very, very small theater, so I did not get to see it in Atmos. I saw it at Island Cinema here on South Padre Island, who had recently upgraded to digital projections, and they had a nice sound system, so it was a very small theater, but picture quality was good. It was really nice seeing it in a small theater with maybe 40 other people. So it was, there were lots of kids, you could have that sense of excitement, almost like watching it in somebody's really large living room. It was like a big family get together.
I almost feel like we should post the photo, like of you nearly reaching from end to end of the screen, standing in front of it. That was a wonderful sense of place.
It's good that it was upgraded, because before that they would just have someone describe the plot to you.
That was the same person who plays the piano right next to the screen.
Right, exactly. He's very old.
Andy, what'd you think?
I had a lot of fun with it. I think that they did. I really agree with Steve quite a bit. I love the characters. I had so much fun with all of these characters. And the characters surprised me in a lot of ways, which I really enjoyed. I felt the story really kind of fell into just kind of standard comic book story. Like both Tommy and Steve have alluded to, it's just, this kind of plot about all the good guys, the bad guys. There's obviously some sort of treaty or something going on between the planet and, the bad guy that is getting pulled apart by this bad guy who's set on destroying them now. But, it just all kind of felt very comic booky, and I couldn't quite click with the story, but it was one of those stories that I enjoyed the characters so much that I just kind of went along with it. And I mean, yes, I wish that the story was a little more enjoyable for me, but on the whole, I still really enjoyed it.
I think I agree with you. I think one of the challenges, and we can talk more about this, I think one of the challenges is launching a property like this that is one of the lesser known properties as a team film, right? When you think about what they were able to do with the Avengers, they already had much more widely known team members, and B, all of them had already had films for the most part, right? So introducing these characters together was something I think they could get away with. This one, I had that same sense of, wow, they are jamming a ton into this film, in terms of just trying to shoehorn in, little segments of little tweaks of backstory. And I think that's what gets us to have these like micro scenes of the Collector and of Thanos and of Nova Prime and like these just little pieces. But what the film did for me, I think it stood, I think as an enormously fun summer romp. I was connected from the very beginning. I think every one of these team members' characters has wonderful charisma. I loved watching them on screen, and I really enjoyed the fact that they all really it wasn't a kind of a Star-Lord show. I think it was pretty even-handed. We got to hear from everybody and learn a little bit about everybody in terms of their sort of emotional and their kind of behavior. So I had an enormously good time. I'm firmly in the pro camp. And I'm going to say it. I think that Chris Pratt's a movie star.
Yes.
Yes.
Big time.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd like me? I know that he's just one of those guys that you think you could get along with. He would get along with everyone, but I kind of think he'd like me. I feel like we'd get along together. It's just something to put in the side.
No,
let's go to the phones.
That's the best friends we've never met list, and I actually have a running list of people who I think would really dig me if they only had time to get to know me.
Right.
And I think Chris Pratt is totally on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter. That's got to mean something.
That's all it takes. Yes, no, I agree with you, though. I think he is absolutely, he's just that perfect mix. But he pulled off the funny, of course, that I knew he would, but he also really pulled off the physicality and everything across it was just so much fun whenever he was on screen. That's fantastic to see.
Well, I think what's so interesting about him, just coming from, there are a lot of films, he's been in a number of kind of films, but from Parks and Recreation, right? And I am not a huge Parks and Recreation person.
I am, if that helps the conversation.
Okay, so, man, the dude went ahead and got cut for this movie.
Yeah.
Because when he was as Andy Dwyer, he's not a cut guy.
But he did it also for, what was it called? Zero Dark 30. He's done it once before.
Oh, that's a good point. I had totally forgotten that he was even in that movie.
Yeah, he's gone back and forth quite a bit, and I think he said that if it wasn't for these roles that kind of forced him to do it, he would totally just be like 300 pounds and just be completely lazy because his wife feeds him really well.
Right.
That's awesome.
I don't think he has general interest in getting this way unless somebody pays him to.
Well,
he was pretty cut for the Lego movie.
He was
very chiseled
stomach, very hard. It was
He was very flat stomach. That's right. That's right. That's awesome.
This movie was awesome. One of the things I really enjoyed about the characters was that they were Quill. He was really great because he wasn't too outspoken. And I think that's what really attracted me and the audience, I think, to him, was he was never too much.
One of the things that I found interesting in this character, and I think, Chris Pratt brings to this performance is, we've got, when we first meet him as an adult, we've got that little, beginning piece, as a young child. When we first meet, Peter Quill as an adult, that whole opening sequence, to me, I was very, very excited because it was very, I think there was strong references to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh man, did you get that? That's exactly what it looked like.
But then as he's cruising around on his ship, I'm like, wow, this guy is Indiana Jones and Han Solo. It's this, with a little bit of comedy thrown in. I thought he's establishing, quite, being able to pull two of those iconic characters and merging them and making it your own. To me, just, made this film so much more enjoyable. But I just was like, the writing, the ability, of an actor to pull that off, that's a lot of heavy lifting to do. as an actor to carry that and to not feel that it was cheap or, an imitation of, but to create something new out of two very iconic characters. I thought that to be felt, I guess it just raised the bar as far as enjoyment of the film.
There was a whole bunch of times
next generation.
There was a whole bunch of times in this movie that he shot first.
Yes. I think almost every time he shot first. If he wasn't running away, he shot first.
He was shooting first.
I also thought it was great that the movie never took itself seriously. You never thought that there was going to be this layer of cheese. Now this is the cheese part. Several points that were so great, like this part when Zoe Saldana, who played Gamora, is saved by Peter Quill, played by Chris Pratt, and they're having this like romantic moment, and it just looks like it's going to be cheesy, where he's like holding her, and it actually deserves a romantic moment, but it's just this quick moment. He just saves her life, and he almost died saving her life, and she's like, "What happened?" And he goes, "Well, you were about to die, and I saved your life, and I was something inside of me. For a second, he goes, something inside of me. I was a hero. I mean, I don't mean to brag or anything like that, but it's really cool." And just like made fun of itself. It made fun of the fact that they could have gone cheesy with it.
So I believe that they are running this in the same Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the idea being that theoretically this is like on some other side of the galaxy of the events that happen in like the Avengers and those movies.
At the same time?
Yes.
That literally could be. In fact, I think it was rumored at one point that there was going to be like a cameo of Iron Man in the movie because of a comic book tie-in. But so it's all one cinematic universe. So it's not only heavy lifting the characters and introducing all the characters, but also the whole universe as it is. Because with they don't really have to do that with the Avengers and Iron Man and those type of movies, because it's Earth, and they just kind of add a little Asgard or stuff around.
Right.
But for this, it's like literally heavy loading a ton of just, and I don't think they did a very good job of it really. With the Kree, if you're a comic book reader, you can kind of just through osmosis and kind of figure things out. When they mention things like the Kree and Xandos and those type of places, but like just watching the movie, you're completely lost. I think with why things are happening and why things aren't happening.
Mike, are you a comic book reader of Guardians?
I didn't read a lot of Guardians, but I've read a lot of Marvel in my past.
Right. So, I'm not either, but Guardians of the Galaxy, for those who don't know, was originally published in January of 1969, and they have, in fact, done crossovers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They have done crossovers with the Fantastic Four and with Thor, a lot of them with Thor, with, Ms. Marvel, a lot with the Avengers in 1978, Captain America, the thing. So these... there have been crossovers with the Guardians for decades. And in fact, we've already sort of seen it because we met Thanos at the end of, what was it, Thor?
I believe so.
Loki was making a deal with Thor, or with Thanos.
Thanos.
And we met the Collector before.
Yeah, the Collector.
Yeah,
right.
Somebody told him, right.
Well, and the Collector, wasn't the Collector the end of
Avengers, right?
Avengers?
The Collector was at the end of Thor: The Dark World because that's when they bring the ether or whatever it was, the red stuff to him. That's where we met the Collector, and I think Thanos was at the end of and Scarlet Witch. Yeah. That was Captain America.
So we've seen them before. The crossover precedent is there for these guys, and in terms of the general timeline, like the comic, started the Guardians of the Galaxy in the 31st century. And there have been a number of timeline spin-offs and to get them into sort of more contemporary period. But the movie, as you say, it's part of the cinematic universe. It sets up at the very beginning. Peter Quill is taken in 1988, and we meet him 26 years later, 2014. Right. Like that's so the time period. It's a galaxy far, far away, but we're in the right period.
Okay,
right. It's not a long time ago.
Right.
No. Yeah, it's
today a galaxy far, far away.
It's and, at the end of the movie, it even said there will be will we see the Guardians of the Galaxy again? So obviously the Marvel guys are sort of preloading. I'm not going to say the Prometheus effect, but they're at least still doing a little bit of preloading of this and other properties that they want to be able to expand upon.
Right. Well,
will the Guardians of the Galaxy ever meet the Shield gang?
Well, I'm almost sure they're going to meet someone, and it's going to happen on July 28th, 2017, during Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
But you think that definitely means that they're going to cross over?
In the comic books running right now, the Iron Man is part of this group.
Oh, okay.
So but again, how much they're beholden to what the comic books are doing, is obviously not much. So options are open.
All right, so that's the comic backstory. What do we think of the other? I think some of the I don't know. Are there going to be riskier characters? Which is the riskier one, the CG raccoon or the tree?
What do you mean?
I don't know. In terms of characters that you really vibe with, I thought they were fantastic, both of them myself. So
I thought so too, and I was ready out of the gate to be annoyed by Bradley Cooper as the raccoon, not because it's Bradley Cooper, but just immediately just sort of making snarky comments. And then it turns out that it's a raccoon. I was like, "Oops!"
No, when he
this
had
is the problem.
His Norma Ray prison speech was, I thought, really locked it for me. I was totally in it. Of course, it's so sad that you had to work on you and make you a monster.
And it gave him a reason. He wasn't just snarky. I mean, he had anger for a reason, and I really ended up liking him really quickly. Same with Groot. Like, I ended up liking... I was ready to be annoyed by everyone. And just apparently because I'm a horrible person. But, I mean, and not by everyone, but I mean all the cartoon people. But everyone really... They had so much personality, as has been said ad nauseum, of this. The character work was so small but so good that I just loved it.
Well, even Drax, I enjoyed so much more than I was expecting, because normally you have like the big muscle-bound character who is just kind of this dumb character. That's kind of the stereotypical way they play those characters. But he was of this race that was, took everything exactly literal in the way that they spoke, and he was very intelligent, and the stuff that he said was just it was constantly cracking me up, because that'll go way over his head. Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I will catch it. It's just...
Who exactly inserted these sticks up their butts?
Right.
I felt like the beginning of the movie was incredible. Like, it started off and the movie was just, I'm in tears in the beginning of the movie. I was in tears in the beginning of the movie. Like, they went from, like, the first few seconds kind of laughing a little bit because he's always got his tape recorder, to him saying goodbye to his mother, this little kid saying goodbye to his mother. And then there's so much symbolism, like, the opportunities that we miss out in life. We have these little moments where our parents ask us to do something and we don't do it for one reason or another. And then we regret not doing those things when we have the chance. And, it shows it right there in this kid, played by, Chris Pratt when he was a kid. Well, I mean, he didn't play the kid, but, the kid who was playing Chris Pratt's character, Peter Quill, his mom reaches out her hand and says, give me your hand. Give me your hand, Peter. And he doesn't. He can't because he's too hurt. He doesn't want to say goodbye, and his mom dies, and he doesn't get a chance to hold her hand. And there's so many tie-ins throughout the movie that you wouldn't imagine. I mean, they just tied it in so beautifully, so well. And it wasn't done. You weren't expecting those things. But in the end, like, the reason why he was able to save his life, not to give away everything, but, here we go. I'm going to give it away. The ending. Shut your ears if you don't want to hear this, but he's going to die. And if he doesn't touch Gamora's hand, he'll die. But what he remembers is his mom saying, give me your hand, Peter. Give me your hand. It just ties it together so beautifully. And you watch that and you say, oh, that is awesome. That is really cool.
It's like the only character I felt like was really kind of, I don't know, not as well developed, I guess you could say, as the rest was Gamora. It's like sort of, daughter of Thanos, massive assassin,
Well,
That hurts.
Is that
That
her
hurts my
official character
feelings.
bio? Daughter of Thanos.
No.
Well-
It's like she built her up to be like this, like assassin and really badass, I guess you could say, and she ended up being sort of Star-Lord's love interest throughout the whole movie. I mean, it almost like she didn't hold her own weight as a character.
Well, I think that goes to sort of that larger Marvel universe, and her character's backstory is tied to Thanos and these characters and Ronan, and we don't get a whole lot about that history.
Yeah,
and so we know there's more to be told. Whereas with Rocket Raccoon, it's Peter Quill seeing the back of it with all these little electronic probes or whatever attached in that,
Right.
like, oh my gosh, there's something more to this raccoon.
Yeah, don't
he's
you
been
think...
abused. There's something going on but with Gamora, we know there's more. And to me, I felt disappointed because it's there, but there's no way for us to get that information.
And that might be, but I mean, the way it felt like it, if you take all five of the characters when they're first introduced, right? They basically build them like we don't know anything about them, and then they build on them. And with Gamora, it's like they almost told us everything about her when they introduced her, and then she started getting like weaker as the movie went on. Like she was doing less cool space assassin stuff, as the movie went on, where everyone else was like doing more cool stuff. The Groot's making fireflies out of his hand and making a ball of spaceship protection cocoon and all this other, healing people with his limbs of Pokey and the chest thing, and all these other people, Star-Lord's getting more interesting, right? And it's almost like, that was the reaction I had.
I didn't share that one. And usually I agree with Mike on this kind of stuff, but in that one I felt like I thought she was great, and I thought there was enough of that sort of human element that came between Star-Lord and Gamora, that him trying to teach her to dance. I mean, those little human pieces, like we learned she was an assassin, and then we get to see her soften up in their relationship, and I thought that ended up being a really nice arc.
And
we do get a little bit of her backstory, how Thanos had actually killed her parents and she wasn't really his daughter. Right. And I think there is some interesting element there, and I see a lot of the damage in her, and I enjoyed it, but I won't disagree that I think that she could have been written a little stronger, but I still enjoyed her character quite a bit.
She got a great action scene. She got many action scenes, but I mean, she got a really big action scene with her. With Robot Sister or whatever that person was.
What was her name? Neptuna? Napoleona? Nebula. Neptuna.
Yeah.
Like that was, like I would agree a little bit more with what you guys are saying. Not that I disagree, but if she was getting beat up and then Star-Lord saved her, but that's not what happened. They gave her own thing.
Yeah, and so the only part I had a problem with that, and this is just my little pet peeve on some of these movies, is like whenever they have a female character, they always seem to get paired up with the female villain.
Well, yeah.
It's like all this stuff's going on, but somehow you can only beat up. It's like preordained. That's what you have to do because they have a female villain. So
can we reflect on that just a little bit and just check me, because did they do that with Black Widow too? When you think about Black Widow, and I say that as a bit of a tie-in because as a strong female kind of military character, right. Nicole Perlman, who co-wrote the screenplay for Guardians of the Galaxy, at least she's down as having written the treatment for Black Widow. So who knows if she's going to end up writing the script?
No, Black Widow kicked a lot of guys.
I think she did. I think that's one that maybe was counter to.
Well, was there a female villain in Avengers?
I don't think she's run into one.
Right. Well, it
that's
seems
refreshing.
Like
I think
you often see like these team things. They seem to always do that. Yeah. And I don't know if it's just my misobservation or not, but that it was like all this stuff built up, and then suddenly the end battle scene. That's all she did is sort of counter Nebula.
Counter the other woman.
Exactly.
But I think that they get away with that because it was her quote sister.
No, right. Agreed. No, I mean there's reasons for it.
Yeah.
But
do you think it has anything to possibly do with the fact that it's really difficult to have a fight scene between a man and a woman?
I think that's
okay.
A lot of, I think that's a lot of what they avoid. So I don't know if it's I've always felt that, and so you saying it maybe
like a
gives
woman
us
beating up a
validation.
man, that's fine. A man
That's okay.
beating up a woman is maybe a problem.
But I don't know. Like in the world of comic book fighting, when the women are essentially as tough as the men. I mean, we had scenes of her fighting with Peter Quill.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
which was a nice sequence.
And I don't think.
That's right. The whole beginning, and then with Rocky in their rocket. I'm sorry, everything. Yeah, you're right. I don't
think it's. Yeah, I think it's different when it's just like somebody abusing somebody. In these comic book movies, it's all done in this comic fighting way. I mean, it's. I don't think that. I don't know. I don't know if they're doing it because we should have her fight another woman. I don't think they're deliberately thinking that. It seems to me that it's in the context of the story. Oh, it would be great to have the two sisters have to go head to head. And yes, it just happens to fall into that cliche of when the woman fights. I mean, it's the same thing in Harry Potter when Mrs. Weasley has to fight Helena Bonham Carter's crazy character.
Spoilers. I've just started the first book. Okay.
Are you serious?
No, I'm just joking.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just joking. I don't know how to read. And to say what Andy was saying about how much, I'm sorry, what was the big tough guy's name?
Drax.
That he had two levels. He had the backstory, but then also when he was wrong and tried to take on bad guy Magoo and his army, then he became like super sensitive. So it's like everyone had a couple little things that signified their personality. So it didn't feel like that old trope of everyone just has one signifier, which is neat. Small writing, but for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was so well acted, so well played out, so well. At the end of my viewing of it, everyone clapped, but I didn't feel like people clapped because it was just a good movie. I felt like people clapped because we all felt at the same time that all around this movie was heartfelt, it was funny, it was well acted. The characters were diverse. The story was well told. I didn't even know anybody in this movie, really. I'd never, except for maybe the Rocket the raccoon. I kind of knew him. But everybody else, I had no former knowledge of. And so this was a brand new thing for me. I wasn't expecting anything about them. I just kind of, in fact, I kind of went in feeling like they were all going to be sort of stupid. It's just kind of a, that kind of movie about, this kind of bunch of ragtags that don't belong together are going to figure out, in the end, the greatest asset are each other and themselves. And along the way, they'll find friendship and love. And I'm like, God, man, I hope it's not about that.
Overall, how do you feel about the script written by James Gunn and that Nicole person?
Nicole Perlman.
Perlman, right? Yeah, James Gunn comes off of he'd done one of the segments for movie 43. He wrote Super, which I had I had a lot of problems with that movie. That was a tough one for me to get through.
Is that the one with Rainn Wilson?
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet, but I saw Slither.
Slither, right?
Yeah, Slither was fun.
Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed.
Oh.
I think he just wrote that one.
He did.
Right?
That's what I was saying. He wrote that. I was talking about the script, the things that he wrote.
Sure,
he also,
sure.
He's also on deck for having written one of my favorites, Dawn of the Dead, with George Romero, the Zack Snyder version of it, 2004, which we've done on the show before. So, what do you think about how he pulled together just the script, apart from the problems we've already had with woman on woman violence?
I have some things to say.
Go say it.
Would you like me to go first?
For crying out loud, man.
That's how I do conversations. I have something to say, and then I just sit there quietly.
Are you raising your hand? It's an audio podcast. Like you're raising your hand.
Oh, because I'm always filming myself whenever I do something, so I get confused. I thought it was. I mean, I'm not a superhero, as we know, as I've said over and over again. I'm not a superhero guy. I'm not a fantasy guy, stuff like that. I thought that they did a phenomenal job with such a weird, and I think that Marvel deserves an enormous pat on the back for the courage that they took with this film. I mean, the opening is so dark, and then to go to a kind of funny dance sequence with this anachronistic soundtrack. There were so many smart things that like grounded the film and made it so funny and so relatable, while having all of this crazy stuff happen. It was just, I can't imagine how many people got scared during the making of it or the reading of it, because it walked that line incredibly well, and that's a very weirdly thin line to walk. And I thought it was just like two arms open, just sort of embracing me into this weird world, and I loved it. What?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think they wrote this script for in a way that made it okay, like we've all said. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's thrown at you to kind of develop this world, and it's not as clean as it could be. They could probably have found a better way to make it a little cleaner and really build the world so it all makes a little more sense to us. And, on second or third viewing, maybe I'll catch all the little things that they were saying to really fully understand what the entire story is. But on the whole, I think they're writing in a way where they understand that this is going to be a really fun film and people are going to have a good time and just enjoy it. And I mean, I think that they succeeded.
In what I just said, Andy, I should have said that I don't care about that stuff personally.
Yeah.
So that world building isn't important to me, because even if you were to lay it out for me on a Venn diagram, I'd still never understand it. So they got the stuff that is important to me very right.
Yeah.
It really reminded me the most, I know we talked about Han Solo and Raiders of the Lost Ark. It reminded me of the movie Serenity.
Yeah.
So much of the idea of, it reminded me of a Joss Whedon script of really like taking on these big ideas and then sort of poking fun holes in them, making fun of certain tropes, all that kind of stuff.
And I think Nathan Fillion is actually the voice of one of the characters in the prison.
Yeah.
I think I saw his name in the credits.
He's the one that Groot jabs up the nose.
That's right.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Okay, that's funny.
The big guy.
Yeah. To follow up on sort of what Andy was saying, I think this to me felt sort of like a comic book adaptation. I think ever since Christopher Nolan took Batman and brought it into the gritty real world, there's been this tendency to try to make these films set in a realistic world versus a comic book world. And the comic book universe, you can stretch the limits of sort of reality a little bit. You can suspend your disbelief a little bit more. I mean, we have characters that, as I'm counting them, like these Guardians of the Galaxy, almost all of them, actually, I think, with the exception of the raccoon, all of them sort of had very close near-death experiences. You've got Drax, who apparently is beaten within an inch of his life by Ronan. You've got Star-Lord and Gamora floating in space, freezing to death.
That was pretty good.
Which were all great, powerful, emotional moments. But it's not like you're like, well, gosh, that if they were really in outer space, you're in a comic book, and it's a nice, bold step. And it reminded me, and I'm going to sort of sidetrack here for a second, but it reminded me a lot of the animated film Hotel Transylvania, which was one of the first computer animated films that really went back to that sort of like Looney Tunes, cartoon style, because Pixar does computer animation, but it's still very real world physics. Whereas you get that wacky Tex Avery, thing, people breaking apart, eyeballs popping out of heads, all that stuff happening, and we haven't seen that for a long time or at all really in a computer animated film. So it's like, well, this is a cartoon. This is the next generation of cartoons. We can do that. We can put in these wacky physics. And to me, Guardians of the Galaxy was sort of recapturing that, hey, we are a comic book, and we're gonna really be rooted in that sort of comic book, universe of, what we can get away with. And to me, that was something that set it slightly apart tonally from a lot of the other, Marvel films that we've seen, which, take themselves very seriously, whereas this one, when you've got your big showdown with your villain, we're gonna have a dance off,
Yeah.
Right.
It's you've got that silliness thing come in, but to me it didn't really undermine the story because it really felt true to what it was being for itself.
Yeah,
Agreed.
no, I think that is. I think that's a really great point. It's this. This is a movie that had no misunderstanding of its identity. Or its intention was really to celebrate its comic worldliness, and I think it really did well on that front. Some of it, I wonder, because we have this sense of reality in the Avengers. We have these like fantastical beings who can do wonderful things, but they're grounded in New York. We have certain liberties that we get not by taking fantastical beings and putting them in space. We're allowed to break more rules as long as the rules are intrinsic to the world we've set up. We can go ahead and break all the rules that we would have in New York and get away with a lot more. The artificial gravity is out. Well, let's not think too hard about artificial gravity.
It's more of a playground.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It felt very much like a playground to me. James Gunn, I think, really delivered a fantastic film, and coming off of he sort of falls into that same category of a younger, less experienced filmmaker. He hasn't made a lot of movies. He hasn't directed a lot of movies, and the movies he's directed are really very indie. Or the pilot of the TV series Human Z. That's like chimpanzee and human. That's right. Oh. He did that. And so, Human Z. And so, he comes off, and this was after Slither. So he comes off of these things, and now he gets this giant tentpole, and it felt good to watch him sort of prove the mechanics right.
Yeah, I mean, he came out of Troma, so I mean, it's great seeing that he's kind of put on the big boy pants and is making something that's a huge budget that I think is going to really succeed, and a lot of people are going to just kind of fall into becoming big fans of the Guardians of the Galaxy now in the Marvel circles.
Yeah, I absolutely
coming
agree.
Out of that Troma camp, there was one other name that came to mind if he's on a career path of who he could be the next generation version of. That'd be James Cameron, who came out of the Roger Corman School.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And, then it was, because I was just reading Entertainment Weekly, they were doing a little retrospective on, the Terminator and how he put that together, and that being his big break, and, looking at James Gunn coming out of that Troma world and being able to pull stuff together and, low budget story, type of thing, and now launch something like this that is, on track to be this huge summer blockbuster. Maybe we should be expecting great things from him in another 10, 15 years, the next king of the universe or whatever.
Is that what James Cameron is?
The king of his universe.
Self-proclaimed,
king of the world, yeah.
And then we have the Zoe Saldana connection there as well. And I'm realizing she is set for she's got 3 franchises she's doing right now: Star Trek, Avatar, and now Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she's on track to.
And she's my girlfriend. I don't know if you guys knew that. We're very happy together. Don't tell her that I told you that.
She's now played Blue and Green.
That's right.
And so she's on her way to get the coveted Roy G. Biv Award.
Is that like an EGOT?
Yeah, it's like an EGOT.
It's her own personal 3 flavors cornetto.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So anyhow, it really, I think he did a great job, and I think he did, as we've talked about. The fact that he crafted a story that from the very beginning, and that opening sequence was tough. That kid, was great. Like the young Peter Quill, like the shock and that experience of his mother passing, I thought was a terrific moment and really drove me into the film in a positive way. So watching the credits, and the credits go by, and my kids, they know when they need to stay to the end, so there's never any question. And we're staring at the names going by, and my son looks over and he says, wow, what are all those names? And of course, it's the visual effects team. There are like 10,000 people on the visual effects team
right.
for this film. I think they should likely, instead of counting the effect shots, they should count the practical shots in this film, because it seems inverted. What did you think of the general look and tone of the visuals?
Fantastic.
Really great. Never got annoyed. Never felt like it was too... I knew where everything was. I knew where people were fighting. I knew all that stuff. And that sometimes is lacking in a lot of movies like this, because just because they have computer effects, they think they need to use computer effects. And this one felt like and maybe it comes partly from his indie background of needing to do things as practically as possible and then use the computer effects to enhance it versus using the computer as the camera, which is always great for me.
Yeah, and it continued kind of that whole comic book world that Steve was talking about. The whole look of it, everything just feels so comic booky. Nothing feels too grounded in reality, but it still feels real enough to buy into the world. And I think that they kind of just stayed very consistent with that all the way through. And I'm guessing a lot of the looks of the specific things they took from the comics, like that strange, what was it, like that the giant being's head that the collector and all those people were kind of living in and mining. Yeah, that was just like one of those fantastic things. It's like, well, that is an amazing thing that I never had thought about before, but it was brilliant. And even just the beginning world where Star-Lord lands and he's going to look at that, try to find the orb, and also just like part of that world, just the way he turns on his little thing, and it creates kind of the historical image of that world, as so he can figure out where he's going and everything. It was just, I mean, it all was just a very exciting way to create this world, and it worked really well. And I didn't have any problems with any of the visuals in it. I thought they all were just stunning and worked perfectly for this kind of fun comic book world that they were creating here.
And used more smartly than they needed to be.
Oh, you're kind of on a roll with that.
Why do I keep saying that over and over again?
You said it about the apes thing, too.
I'm a really big, for movies like this, especially for summer tentpoles and for movies that the film board sees, like when something is smarter than it needs to be. And I want to talk about, not right now, but at some point I'd like to talk about the soundtrack a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to get
it's
to
just
that.
so much smarter than it needs to be, and that just makes my heart burst. It just makes me so happy, and that makes me feel that James Gunn is really someone to watch.
Well, and before we jump into the music, I just want to throw in the Ben Davis cinematography, because, I think so much of the look and the movement of the film, he has a really interesting history. I mean, this is a guy, he's got, 24 credits, cinematography credits, and he seems to jump from sort of genre and budget really dramatically throughout his career. He went from sort of Hannibal Rising to Stardust to Kick-Ass to Wrath of the Titans to Seven Psychopaths to A Long Way Down to Guardians of the Galaxy to Before I Go to Sleep, his next film of the Nicole Kidman mystery thriller, and then to Avengers: Age of Ultron. So I mean, it's like every other film the guy takes is an indie, and or not an indie, but it's a smaller budget kind of a very sort of human to a giant, sci-fi fantasy spectacle. And I feel like you can really feel it in the way he moved the camera around, particularly the way they explore the ship, Star-Lord's ship, the way they explore the planets. I really, that opening sequence, his Singing in the Rain sequence through the Raiders Temple is, I thought was a real testament to that, like taking a really dark, kind of moody environment and moving the camera in a way that felt like a musical to me. And I was really touched by that. And I think it goes to much of his, his experience, behind the camera.
That's cool, because that also sort of can be the same thing with James Gunn.
Right.
Like if you have this small sensibility, then you'll bring that cool sensibility to a larger canvas.
Yeah, you just said it better than I did.
Thank you.
That's exactly what I meant. I'm holding my finger to my nose.
Okay, good.
So we keep talking about musical moments, and I was going to come back to Andy and talking about, even the opening scene with his mother and what that does, and the powerful scene, and it does connect, later back into sort of the final confrontation. But what it also sets up is this great character piece for Star-Lord, where he's carrying around the awesome mixtape, but then how the film, how they use that in the film. You can have a scene where Peter Quill just, he's got his headphones on and he's sitting, and then that song is playing, so we know that's what he's listening to, but then that song carries over and becomes the soundtrack of the scenes that we're seeing, so that we have this sort of, mid-70s soundtrack in this film set in 2014, but that it's used so well for the audience, but also it's giving us just so much insight into this character of Star-Lord, of this strong connection he has, and it's adding more depth to this character, but we can do it sort of in a multi-purpose way. And to me, that was just one of the tremendously entertaining things about this film. Again, one of those comic book elements of what world, what universe are we in? We're this fun one where I can be on an alien planet, bust out a 80s style Sony Walkman and listen to some tunes from the 70s and drop kick, little alien lizards across the planet.
Well, and I want to add to that point, because I think we learned something so interesting from a screenwriting perspective, right? Just in terms of the mechanics of what that Walkman represents, right? That is a totem, and it's a wonderful totem, this sort of item around which we get to see other characters react to Peter Quill's character. And that sequence when he goes into the jailer and says, "You got to give that back to me," and the other characters watch him willing to be electrocuted by the guard in order to get back this totem. It was a really powerful moment, and you can see that even on Rocket Raccoon's face, even on Gamora's face. You can watch them learning about him by the lengths to which he will go to salvage this piece of plastic.
Neat.
This music.
It's a good point.
I thought that was really special.
Well, what's also interesting, and I think it may have been completely lost on the younger viewers in the crowd, the younger adults, young 20s or whatever, is that to realize that after 26 years, that tape would have been so stretched out.
Yeah, right.
That there'd be no way you would have heard that. I mean, that was totally clear music. That's unrealistic.
Good point. Good point. Equally good point. One of the things that I wanted to say real quick about the soundtrack that is illustrative of the idea of smarter than it needs to be is Peter was abducted, quote unquote abducted, around when?
1988.
88. With that being, it could have been his mixtape, that it could have been a lot of low-hanging fruit, really obvious jokes of like, haha, crazy 80s songs.
Yeah.
That would have been in a lesser writer or lesser director's hands. That would have been the easy thing to do of can't touch this and stuff like that for these crazy. But instead, because it was his mom's mix made from things from her era, then it was this, they were used smartly and it was used sort of beautifully. And it's probably introducing a lot of kids and teenagers to songs they never possibly would have heard of.
So they didn't use the soundtrack for, I guess you could say, evil purposes, right? They didn't, like you said, they didn't use all the like almost stereotypical 80s song references that they could have made, right?
Yeah,
they did hammer home the Kevin Bacon thing a bit, which I thought was used, fine.
And let me know if I'm derailing the current rail that we're on. I don't know how to talk. Did anyone else have, and it was actually confusion for me versus nitpicky originally, did Peter Quill, once he was abducted at 10, did he ever have any other influence, like visit Earth or anything? The only reason I brought that up is because with his references, what do you think he was, like around 10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if this is a nothing thing, then that's fine. But it seemed like I understood that he would reference, if you leave the Earth in 88 at 10 years old, I understand that you're referencing Raiders of the Lost Ark because Raiders would be your jam, but he also references Maltese Falcon and like Jackson Pollock. They were all funny, but did that stand out for anyone of why would a 10-year-old know that stuff unless he had more knowledge about the Earth?
Well, Mom did listen to good music.
So maybe have gotten that from Mom.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm fine with that.
And later on in life, Peter Quill's a friend of the podcast.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, just saying that about the mom, that if he had just been listening to dumb 80s teen music or something, then I would have more trouble with that. But that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought it was a reference to the shard or whatever it is being almost like this boondoggle or sort of
MacGuffin.
MacGuffin, because that's like what the Maltese Falcon was, right?
Right.
Oh, totally. Just that a 10-year-old would know what the Maltese Falcon was.
I almost got that from like maybe he has Netflix or something.
In '88?
No.
In outer space.
Running around in outer space. Like he's never gone back to the Earth, but he's like kind of kept up with.
That was my question. Does he have any kind of influence or connection to Terran, or whatever they call it?
Well, it sounds like everyone knows about Terra, but it's like a backwater or something.
Sure.
And no one's really interested in it.
Okay.
At least that's how I got the impression.
Yeah.
Cool.
Assumed.
Before we go go too far into, I do want to talk about how you saw these films, mostly because I feel so good that I'm in the club.
Oh, that's right. You have running water now or something.
I am so excited. But I finally seen my first Atmos film.
Woo!
Not only did I see it, but I went to a new theater, like pretty much brand new, and so it was the new Ultra 4K projection. It was the new screens, the 80-foot screen.
How many state lines did you have to cross to get to this theater?
Just one.
Okay.
How many passports did you use?
One passport stamp, you buzzkill. But it was really spectacular. So I did see Dolby 3D Atmos, and this was my first. The 3D was. I did not like the 3D as well as frankly as real 3D. I thought it wasn't that the 3D was bad. It was the experience. The glasses weren't as good. It was just the watching experience wasn't as nice. But the 3D, because this was not a real 3D film. It wasn't shot using 3D camera. But Andy, didn't you read that this was one that they had 3D in mind?
Yeah, right from the start, even though James Gunn knew he wasn't going to be filming it in 3D with the cameras, he was planning just how things would look in 3D as he was shooting things, so that he was constantly thinking, okay, how can I do this, shoot this scene to really enhance the 3D. And so it was always in the back of his mind as he made it from beginning to end, rather than kind of an afterthought.
And I would say, did anybody else see it in 3D? Steve, did you in your little island theater have any 3D?
No, just regular 2D.
So that's a little sore.
Did you see it in 1D?
Is it in color? I would say that I would add to that the that the 3D the Dolby 3D I just did not have a good experience with. The 3D of the film was not garish. It was not overblown. It was really quite elegant, and I felt like the extra depth was good for the film. Like you could tell it was well presented. There were no moments, and I fully expected these moments. When Michael Rooker's character has this fancy whistle-controlled arrow that is really quite it's an elegant weapon. And if it weren't for all the dumb whistling he had to do to make it work,
it'd be awesome.
But I fully expected that to come flying at me more than once, and I didn't get any of that. Like there was none of that. Oh, look, they tried to make me duck. So it was really well planned 3D. I enjoyed it.
How did the fireflies look?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
they were lovely.
Was that kind of neatly used?
You know what? It wasn't as good as, and still the stunning 3D use of particulates is still Avatar. Either in the in the aftermath of the burning tree, or when the jellyfish things are floating around in the thing and they're doing romance, like those pieces, I really felt like I could reach out and touch those things. Right,
yeah.
Those were stunning bits of filmmaking, and that makes it worth paying more to go see 3D. I didn't get any of that. I just really, I didn't feel. This is what it is. I didn't feel anything coming out to me. I felt depth into the scene.
Okay.
Right. Which I thought was it was nice. It was nice. But the Atmos, it was sort of a mixed bag. I think I'd set because of you losers, I'd set my standards, so my expectations so high that I felt like I was a little bit underwhelmed, but mostly because it's such a busy film.
Yeah. And that's something I noticed because I did see it in Atmos, and it was just very busy, and there was nothing that stood out to me through the entire film as, wow, that was a great Atmos moment.
The best Atmos moment was the Atmos trailer before the film started.
It always is. It always is.
Oh man, all three of us, my kids and I, were standing there. We were literally floored into our seats with the shimmering and the birds and stuff. That was stunning, and that made it worth the trip, to go to this theater. But I will be doing this again. It was a great experience. I can't wait to see a film that's a little bit more aurally subdued in order to see it really work.
Right.
And I could totally see what you guys were saying with Planet of the Apes in Atmos. It must have been fantastic.
I wouldn't know. I can't remember not seeing things in Atmos.
Oh, right.
That's where your tagline goes in. I'm the worst.
I'm the worst. I can't read. So I'm dating a toaster. Stairs.
My viewing experience was more along the lines of Steve's this week. It was 2D, and it was third row from the front.
Ooh!
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you, I will say this. When they say that every seat in the house is the same cost, every viewing experience is not equal. And especially this particular movie, because there was so much going on, like shifting cameras and stuff. My eyes literally unlinked several times in the movie, where I just could not focus, because reason is trying to make a 7-year-old understand what we need to leave 30 minutes before because it's opening weekend means was unsuccessful.
Well, and that's a handy new adaptation that you have, though. We'll call that evolution, that you can separate your eyes like that.
Let me tell you, if it was one of those paintings that where it's got the
stereograms,
the stereogram, and there was something in it, I could have seen it, because click, done.
Andy, Tom,
good.
Atmos, digital, 3D, everything. What'd you see?
No 3D, but digital.
All right.
Yeah, and I saw it in Atmos. I was curious to see.
Atmos. Yeah, sorry.
I would be interested in seeing this in IMAX, because I hear that it does have some aspect ratio shifts throughout, and they handle it nicely when they do. So that did pique my curiosity. So if I do go see this again, I might check it out in IMAX.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wanted to see it in IMAX. I hate those transitions. And in my book, there's only one movie that's done it right, and that was
Batman.
Which was terrible. I hated Batman.
That's what I was about to say.
No, it was the Hunger Games, the last Hunger Games.
Because it changed.
They changed once in a beautiful part of the film, and the aspect ratio changed in a part that I thought added to the transition of the movie, that sequence of the film. So it only did it once. It didn't go back and forth, right? And so I'll be interested to see. Plus, I just like seeing it in IMAX. So.
Yeah,
I'll hit it again. All right. Any other hot topics before we jump to our favorite part?
I don't think.
I will say that number 2, I think it may suffer from the same problem that most sequels have, is that a tremendous amount of this film was backstory related. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with a full movie of content required.
I will say that the great part about Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is somebody has already put a synopsis up on IMDb that says, someone will try to take over the world, and the Guardians of the Galaxy will stop them.
They're going to chase after another glowy purple thing. I wrote that.
May as well have, yeah.
That's awesome.
We didn't talk about Tyler Bates. I don't think we've ever talked about Tyler Bates on this show. But the guy's got a healthy number of credits, and he did the score.
Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, you're right. You did Dawn of the Dead. We did talk about him.
I don't know if we mentioned him, but
but Sucker Punch. He's been sort of part of this. Watchmen. I really enjoyed the score, and not just the soundtrack. Just the entire musical element of this film, I thought was really well done.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, he's somebody who he goes up and down as far as what he does, but there are a lot of movies that he's done scores for that are so much better than the movie warranted.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy Tyler Bates.
Yeah. All right.
We didn't really talk about Lee Pace as Ronan and as the main villain of the film. I'm wondering if that's because we didn't feel like there was much to say about him.
He was bad. That's kind of all I felt about it.
You mean just as a bad guy?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't mean he was bad like poor. I mean he was just mean.
Yeah.
But he was so covered up, like there was
you could tell by all that makeup.
Right. There was because the makeup was so strong and his outfit was so covering, like almost no personality was able to come through. He was just the big bad, and I was okay with it personally.
He was a nice target, and that made the final kind of showdown when the Guardians kind of grabbed hands in the middle of the purple vortex. That was a really nice triumphant moment. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed kind of the feeling, the kind of emotional connection of them really kind of taking him apart, and I thought it was fine. But again, he was bad and a target, and that was about it.
And I didn't even connect that he's the Elf King in the Hobbit movies.
That's
my
really
God.
funny. I didn't either. Wow.
My head's about to explode.
So I guess we can talk about him in December. So
the other one we didn't talk about is that other sort of is Thanos, which really.
Oh, I just don't know who anyone is.
Oh,
there were
he
so
was
many
the guy
big bad guys.
in the
He's a
rocket
space
chair.
drone.
Yeah, the rocket chair, and it was played by Josh Brolin. And
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Why are we paying Glenn Close and Vin Diesel and Josh Brolin to do these things? That's so dumb.
I remember paying Vin Diesel for I Am Groot.
Right.
Well, and serious spoiler, the after credit sequence is another uncredited performance by Seth Green.
That's the voice?
Yeah, who I deeply hope ends up in a movie of this character. I think that it has to redeem the last time they tried this, that character. So anyway, it was those were to Mike's point, those little backstory snippets felt like end of credit sequences, like the Thanos Ronan sequence felt like an end of credit sequence for some other movie that should have been explained better here. I mean, I got over it, but I just expected a little bit more kind of understanding. It was just not clear enough to me. So
I mean,
it was a little messy.
It just lends more to why, like the fear of the bad thing happening. TM trademark.
Yeah.
If you kind of know why, why it's actually setting up. I mean, it was just like, yes, he wants to do this, and we need to stop him. And, maybe a little bit more than that is required. But I thought he did pretty good. I thought he was appropriately sinister, and when Drax was trying to beat him up, he can handle his own business
really calmly.
Yeah. I mean, Drax is a pretty tough
Neo-like.
guy, so but other than that, it was like, oh well.
Yeah, well, I guess it's again, we've got in the Avengers we've got Loki, and we see that's like when we first see Thanos is sort of the end credits of Avengers, and it's just sort of like the profile of Thanos, and now we got a little bit more of Thanos, and it's like, okay, here's really the big bad of the Marvel universe, but audience members that don't read the comic books really don't know who this character is, what's going on, and from what I've sort of been seeing, and the information that's coming out of like Comic-Con about Avengers Age of Ultron, is don't expect to see Thanos in that film. So it's like, okay, is it 2017, 18? When do we get the big payoff? How long are they going to be teasing this out? Is there a much larger story? How does all this come together? Or, have they figured out what they're going to do with this storyline? Because going back to the first Thor film, that's where we've got we get the cube, and that's come out, and now we've got the we're all these Infinity Stones. So now is it sort of like Harry Potter collecting the Horcruxes? It's just we're slowly piecing these things together over these arcs of these films, which are very entertaining in themselves. But when do we start to see the payoff for all?
Well, I believe
they've
said that Avengers 3 is going to be Thanos is the baddie in that one.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Oh, so that's why
else?
Josh Brolin.
Yeah, that's why why Josh Brolin is on board, because
everyone's coming
Thanos,
back.
right?
Okay.
And that's, I think, what happens in a lot of these sorts of films is you get these people who agree to, I'll come on and be a bit player in this, knowing that I will have a much bigger role in some films down the road. Yeah.
And
like Avengers, like Captain America's sidekick, Bucky.
Right.
Dude's going to get a lot of movies out of this run.
Yes, he is.
Does anyone else feel that like the big bad evil force in some of these Marvel films need to go to the other side of the hue? I mean, we got the blue from the Captain America, and we got the purple, and it's like I feel it's like appropriately depressing colors, and I think a light, summery evil force should be introduced in some of these movies, like red.
We do have
the Red Skull. We had the Red Skull.
We had Red Skull, and now we have Hunter.
He used the blue lighty stuff.
Well, yeah.
You know,
Maybe they're all falls.
because if they
autumn.
use green, I'm going to start saying that they're going to be trying to channel Green Lantern or something. So
well, they have that coming too at some point, I think.
Well, that's DC.
That's DC, right? Let's rank it, shall we? Is everybody up for ranking?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen now.
Okay, this is going to be regrettable out of the gate. As you'll remember for Edge of Tomorrow, I sang a short 80s theme song. Songs that used to reference the actual movies and characters. And then I also remembered that in the 80s and 90s, they also did rap songs that were based about the characters and the movies themselves.
Oh, no.
So unfortunately, oh no is right. I wrote a very quick rap song for Galaxy of the Guardians.
You just keep your tempo right, because I could drop in a bass line for you.
Okay, here's how it goes. Deep breath. Wait, hold on. I can't. Don't make me laugh. Hold on, because I have to do it almost all in one breath. Here we go. Galaxy Guardians here to please the audience. All pleasantries they have dispensed their legacy will now commend Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket, Drax, and the Groot. As the heroes of the universe, you surely should root for them. But for us, film board, now's our part. Time to rank them up and shake them up. Let's break them off another flick. Jaw.
Oh, yeah, boy.
That's right. Those were a bunch of words.
You got that skills, bro.
Wow, you just dropped a thesaurus on us.
Thank you. Well, I'm from the streets.
That was awesome. It was as awesome as our Flickchart board. If you go to flickchart.com/ TNR film board. Yes, let's go there. And then you can see how Guardians of the Galaxy stacks up against all the films that we've done on the show. What are we up to? I mean, we got to be up to what, 70, 80, 22?
On the film board? This will be number 25.
25. Yeah. 25. So will it break the top 10? That's the big question. We've talked about a lot of crappy movies.
All right, here we go. Guardians of the Galaxy or Cloud Atlas?
Oh! My old friend my new friend Cloud Atlas.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I know, I said it.
Guardians.
I'll say Guardians. Yeah, okay. Guardians or Captain America the Winter Soldier?
Oh.
I'll do Guardians.
Really?
I will do Guardians, and I will again give my reason. Dharma Initiative Exposition Bunker.
My goodness. Every time you say that, it's like a whole new thing to me I have to think about.
It just really bothered me in this one. Guardians of the Galaxy. Easily.
Okay, fine.
Type in the digits.
I must abstain.
What?
Mike, what about you?
Well, I said Guardians.
Oh, you did? Okay, so Guardians it is.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
Guardians.
I think
a little hair trigger on
sad.
There.
Well, it made me remember. It made me
because of
sad.
the animals hurting animals thing.
Oh, Mike. Yeah, no. Tom had all those funny feelings.
Animal issues
after the Ape movie. Yeah.
All those funny feelings. I did.
Well,
I'll
do Planet of the Apes.
I'll say Guardians.
Steve said Guardians. Is that right?
Yeah,
I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at what am I going to watch over and over again, and I mean, yes, they both have high rewatchability, but there's just something well-rounded. It's all those quadrants of humor and action, and right now I'm feeling very Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
All right. Guardians of the Galaxy or Edge of Tomorrow?
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. Flick chart.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Guardians of the Galaxy is now number 3 on our
Sweet.
chart.
Wow. That's great.
I feel good about that. I feel good about that.
Yeah, that's a good spot for it.
What's 1 and 2, or do we not reveal?
Number 1 is Gravity. Number 2 is Edge of Tomorrow. 3 is Guardians. 4 is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. 5 is Prisoners.
Prisoners, hanging in there.
Prisoners,
I like
Yeah.
That would have been a hard one. I'm glad that one didn't come up.
We've got that. But rounding out, you got to finish the top 10, right?
Yeah, World War Z, Looper, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Side Effects, and The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug.
Yeah.
I sort of can't
There's
believe...
a Hobbit in there. Come on.
It's almost unfair for The Hobbit.
One more month, I believe it. I'm a little surprised that Side Effects is still hanging in the top 10.
That is surprising, although I still really like that movie. But it doesn't seem to be in the same pedigree as a lot of these other movies.
Yeah. Anyway.
I will say it's unfair to put the Hobbits in there until all 3 are released and you can vote them all as one. That's the way the Academy
we have to do that. We should do that. Is that what you're saying?
No,
that's the way the Academy does it.
No, they don't.
Sort of.
When did they ever?
You're making that up.
They gave all the awards to the last
movie. The last movie.
Oh,
gets all
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Which is basically like saying you're playing in a 2-hour pond with a 9-hour gorilla.
It's saying, I'm sorry, I did not know what this machine did. Hey, this was a good show, everybody. Nice talk. This was a little bit epic on the talking. Especially once I add Chad's half hour of explosive commentary.
Oh,
right. Are you putting him in post?
I'm going to do that in post.
Just replace me with him. I think that'll all work out fine.
This was, thank you, everybody. Steve Sarmento, thank you, sir.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
And Uber Mike Evans.
I am Mike.
Tommy Handsome.
He is Mike.
And Andy Nelson, my dear friend and colleague. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Head over to thenextreel.com, and you can catch up with all the other Film Board episodes and all the shows that Andy and I do on this thing. We're wrapping up our Terry Gilliam series, so if you haven't listened to the regular show, you should do that, because, man, we rocked it on the Fisher King this week, right?
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Rocked it. Crushed it.
I kind of felt like you guys were the Fisher Kings.
I don't know what to make of that. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
You were supposed to, because it had the word king in it.
Yes, right. That's how I... Well, and Fisher people, I think, are just generally good people. I've never known a Fisher that I didn't like. And so next week, 12 Monkeys. Got to hang in for that. And otherwise, I don't know what we're doing next month. We're about to decide, so you should definitely come back and listen to the Film Board Gang of Thugs next month. Thanks,
and
everybody.
You can find out on the Letterboxd watch list what we have for next month.
That's right, because it's not up there yet, right? We haven't actually decided.
No. Yeah, we've got the Next Reel's Film Board watch list, so we'll get it up there soon.
We will. It's coming. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Does anyone else have that running in their heads?
No.
Actually, whatever that song is. What is that song?